Hi, this is Sue from my journey with Parkinson's, and I've called this podcast The Joy of Gifting. Now, I have never been one to have flash jewellery, lots of diamonds and rubies and all those sorts of things. I've never been in a position to buy expensive jewellery, and I would rather actually have little bits and pieces that are bright, colourful and different to brighten up my life from time to time. When I was a teenager, I was telling my daughter and my grandchildren the other day, when I met my children's father when I was about 17, I had a thing for brooches, and there were some quite quirky brooches that I had. I had a very trendy denim waistcoat with a satin back that I wore all the time, and on it I had some little brooches. One was this cute little sparkly bit of knitting, little knitting needles, tiny little knitting needles, with this sparkly blue knitting below it. I had a little banana and a tomato, and I think there was a carrot, a few other things. And I was telling them that their cousin Kyle, when he was a baby, sort of wrecked a lot of them, pulling on them when I was holding on to him. But yeah, that was in my teenager years. And then as I got older and I started working in offices and things, I would brighten up my jackets, especially if they were black, with some sort of sparkly jewellery, brooches and things like that, and that's the sort of thing that I enjoyed. So about a year or so ago, maybe longer, because it's hard to remember what the passage of time has been sometimes, but a wee while ago now, a year or two earlier, I decided to look through my jewellery box and see what was in there. And I had a look through, and because I haven't been working for a little while, probably a couple of years now, I had a whole lot of things that I used to wear when I went to work, on my dresses and things, and they were just sitting there, nothing of any real value. But there in itself is another conversation we'll have during this bit of a chat. Anyway, I didn't think there was anything much of any value, but they meant something to me. They had memories, and they were something that I enjoyed, that gave me pleasure. So I have my daughter and my 3 granddaughters that live here in Christchurch, and I got them to come and have a look in my jewellery box, and I selected pieces that I was happy to pass on now. And I know some people might think that was a bit strange. I know for myself, when my husband's lovely mum passed away, that she had some jewellery, and mostly costume jewellery, and I found it in her bedroom, and I gave it all to her sister, and she said that I could look through and select some stuff. And it just didn't feel good looking for something in somebody's jewellery box when they had just passed away. And it reminds me of when my children's grandparents had passed away. The last one was his grandmother, and her flat was being tidied up by relatives, and my then mother-in-law asked if I wanted anything from the house. And I said, no thank you. I said, I'm not interested, I don't need anything. And I was aware that there had been some squabbling about who got what after the last of the grandparents had passed away. Arguments over who was promised the telly, who was promised the lounge suite, all that sort of thing. And I hated it. And I just said, I don't want anything. But I went anyway in the end, and I took a little spotty cup, saucer and plate, just as something that I could show my children that had been their great-grandmothers. So I didn't want my children to be in that situation where somebody was pressuring them to look through my jewellery box at a very sad time. Now, there will be things in there eventually that I have valued and that are of more value, but I wanted to give the girls some bits and pieces from that jewellery box, and for them to choose the things that they liked, and then I could see the pleasure of them choosing them and wearing them. And my daughters had a couple of things as well. So that's what I did. I passed on some jewellery. Now, the youngest child is living with her dad, so I don't see her as often, but we gathered together just the other week to have a celebration for her 13th birthday. And I had given my daughter a brooch for her youngest, and it was like a red with a spider on, and it was like red crystal fake ruby things for the spider. And I really liked it, but of course I wasn't using it anymore because I'm not working in an office. And I said to Lauren, do you think she would like this? And she said, oh yes, I think she would. So she had given it to her a while ago, and it was my first opportunity to ask her if she liked it. And she did. She said she loved it. And I took another few things along for her when we went for dinner and gave them to her. And I said, I just wanted to give you some things that I've had that I no longer wear and thought that you'd get pleasure from. And I said to her, by the way, I said, don't worry, I'm not sick. I'm not going anywhere in any hurry. I just wanted to give you these things so that I could see that they gave you pleasure, so that you could enjoy them without the sadness attached to receiving them after somebody they loved had passed away. So I also have 3 grandsons. And yeah, it's not to be sexist or anything, but it's a bit harder to find something that you think that boys would like. And maybe we can have that conversation at Christmas, because I've got some really cool paperweights and I think they're cool, and maybe the boys will think they're cool, but they might also think that they're just a hunk of glass and it's not something that would excite them. But I just like the idea of giving people something that gave me joy and giving it to them so that they have received it in a moment of happiness, not in a moment of sadness. So yeah, that's something that I found that it actually makes me smile to think that the people that I love have something from me that I gave to them in person, not after I passed. And I see my daughter quite regularly, and on a number of occasions she's been wearing some of the badges on her jackets and on a hat and all sorts of things. And they look really good. They're there to be worn and they look really cool. And she looks really cool. She always has done. But yeah, so just think about perhaps what you would like to happen with some of the things that are special to you. I don't think it's necessarily necessary in all cases to write things in your will that people can have. And one funny thing, I have had somebody show me Google Lens, and it's a thing where you can take a photo and Google Lens can tell you how much it's worth. So one of the things that I gave my daughter was a cameo ring, and not thinking it would be worth much. And so I, just for a laugh, I tried it out on this Google Lens. And to my surprise and her delight, it's actually worth quite a lot of money. And I said to her, oh my God, I think I have to ask for the ring back. And I showed her what it could be worth, and both our jaws dropped. And so, yeah, my little gift of a cameo ring is a little bit more than I anticipated. But, hey-ho, that's the way it goes. So, yes, that was interesting. It's maybe pays to check out how much things are worth before you give them away, perhaps. But no, it doesn't really matter to me. The value is in giving her joy. That was a ring that actually my mum had received for her 21st from her parents. So, and there's a set of earrings and a necklace that also go with it that I still have. So you never know. I might be keeping those. So anyway, just think about the joy of gifting. Do you want to see in the future the joy on the faces of your children when you give them things while you're still there to see that joy? Or do they wait until you've passed and then it's a sharing up, a divvying up of the jewellery box? And of course men will have other things. Gosh, they might have jewellery too, who knows? But it might be tools that they no longer need, that a grandson or a son might be happy to receive. It could be an old project car that's in a garage somewhere that maybe they could start working on with their son or their grandson. Men have things to leave as well, of course they do. It might be a watch that you had given to you when you were 21 from your grandparents. I know there is a pocket watch in our family that's been passed down to the sons, and it's actually on my children's father's side, and that's something for the guys. But sometimes it's hard to think what I as a woman have got that my grandsons or my son might like. But I'll keep thinking and keep looking, and maybe we'll come up with something sometime soon. So yeah, think about the joy of gifting and seeing that joy for yourself, and sharing special moments where you talk about the memories and the history of those things. This has been Sue for my journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be brave, be strong, be you.